Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. So in this video, we're going to discuss the first 4 solutions for Codeforces round 820, which was rated for division 3. So let us quickly start with the first question. So the first question says that you are at a particular floor 1 and you have been given 3 integers which are the floor numbers. So you are at floor 1 and there are 3 integers a, b and c. Now lift A can directly come to floor 1. So lift A will go to floor 1 which is at floor A, and lift B which is at floor B will go to first floor C and then come to floor 1. So this is the basic question. You have to tell whether it is better to choose lift A or lift B. So it is easy to calculate the time required by both of those. So the time will, for the first lift would be A minus 1 and the absolute value of this. So this is the value for the first lift, and for the second lift. For the second lift, the answer would be absolute of b minus c plus c minus 1, right? So this would be the answer for the second lift. Now we have to tell if this first value is smaller than the second value, or the second value is greater than, or both of them are equal. So these are the 3 cases that we have to print. So this is exactly how you can code it. You can take 3 integers a, b and c as input, and you can calculate d1 as absolute of a minus 1. Then you can calculate d2 as absolute of b minus c plus absolute of c minus 1. So actually you don't need to take this particular value as absolute, because c would always be greater than or equal to 1, right? So even if you don't take, it will still work. So now you can just easily check if d1 is less than d2, you have to print 1. If d1 is greater than d2, then you have to print 2. Otherwise, if they both are equal, you have to print 3. So this was the solution for the first question. Now coming on to the second problem of today's question, it is decode string. So we have been given that we initially had a string S of consisting of lowercase Latin letters, and it has been encoded in a special format such that the special format consists of only numbers, right? So if so, it is like this. Let me explain you. There is a value for each of the alphabets, like A stands for 1, B stands for 2, C stands for 3, and so on. Z stands for 26, right? So these are the ranges. So for any value, if for any alphabet this number is less than 10, let the number be x, this number is less than 10, then the number is written as it is. If it is greater than or equal to 10, like for example, if the value of x is 10, the number 10 is added to the end of it, so it would be written as 100. So if we have like z, it would be converted to 26. So this is greater than or equal to 10, it would be encoded as 260, right? So this is the whole question. We have to find the initial string s. So from this particular thing, we get an idea that we can traverse from the back, and whenever we get a 0, as soon as we get a 0, we will get to this particular position, that is I minus 2th position. Then we can find out the value of this particular number 26, and then corresponding to this number we can find the Latin character or the lowercase Latin alphabet which must be present in the string, original given string. So this way we can reform the original string by traversing from backwards, and this way we will construct the string in the reverse order, right? So this is the code for the second question, in which we have taken the input n, which is the size of the given input string s, and we have also taken the string as input. I initialize the result with a blank string, right, and initialize the index from n minus 1. Now I traverse from reverse to the 0th location. So while index is greater than -1, I check if the current index is equal to 0, and the character at the current index is equal to 0. Then I go to index minus 2th position. At that particular position, what I will do is I will calculate the value of t. So t is a variable I am using to calculate this particular value. For example, if it was written 120, then I have found ith position. At ith position, I have found 0. I'll go to the I minus 2th position. So this will be the I minus 2th position. So I'm storing this particular value as an integer in a string called t. So this integer is t will have the value equals to 12, right? So I can do it by just subtracting from each, from like if I have 1 2, then I can so if this is in character mode, I can subtract 0 from it, 0 as a character. This would give me the ASCII value of 1 minus the ASCII value of 0. So for example, let us assume that the ASCII value of 0 is x and the ASCII value of 1 would be x plus 1, right? So if I do x plus 1 minus x, it would eventually give me 1. So it will give me the value of this particular character in numbers, right? So once I extract it, I can multiply it by 10 and add 2 to it, right? So this is exactly what I have done here. I have subtracted the ASCII value of 0 from it, and from the next and multiplied by 10, and then added s of index plus 1, and again subtracted the ASCII value of 0 from it. So once I get this, what I'll do is I have t with me. So t will be for all the values of t. For a, t is equals to 1. For b, t is equals to 2. Like so, this will go on in this manner. So if so the starting index or the ASCII value of a is 97. So I will have to take the base as 96. So when the value of t is 1, I'll do 96 plus 1 and it will correspond to a, which is at 97 ASCII value. So that is why I have taken 96 here. What I do is I convert this particular thing t into character and then append it at the front of result. I don't append it at the back, I append it at the front of result. So this is what I am doing in case of when s of index is equal to 0. If s of index is not equal to 0, then what I will do is it means that it is a single character and the number is from 0 to 9. It should be actually from 1 to 9, right? So in the same way I have calculated in the previous thing, I calculate the value of t here with the help of only a single character and then append it at the front of the result string, and then when I come out of both of those, I just decrement the value of index, and at the end I'll print the result string, right? So this would be the code for the second question. Now moving on to the third question. So this particular question was not very difficult in terms of observation, but I felt the observation plus implementation part was a bit tricky. So let us discuss this particular question. The question says that we have been given a row of tiles. Each tile consists of a lowercase Latin alphabet, right? So it would be like some characters and lowercase characters, and we have to go from the first tile to the last tile, right? And the cost is the cost of one move is the absolute value of index of si minus index of sj. So index of any character is defined as the location, or it was the same as in the previous question. So index of a would be 1, index of b would be 2, index of c would be 3. So this is exactly same as the previous question, as defined in the previous question. So here what we have to do is we have to find a way to reach the nth tile such that the cost is minimum, and there may be various ways to reach the nth tile with that particular minimum cost, and we have to choose a way with maximum number of jumps, right? So the question is something like this. Let me explain you. If this is the first tile and this is the nth tile, you have to go from here to here, right? And let us assume that the minimum cost that it can take is x, right? X is the minimum cost of to reach n from 1. Now you have to maintain this cost by also increasing the number of jumps that you make, right? You have to increase the number of jumps. The number of jumps should be maximum and the cost should be equal to x. So this is our final question. Now we have to find a series of jumps which satisfies. We have to print the cost and we have to print the maximum number of jumps, and then we also have to print the indexes of the string that we will jump on, right? So the first thing that you can do is convert the whole question or the whole given input into numbers. For example, if I consider this particular case, or let me show you an easier version. if I have written A, B, C, D, then I will convert this particular array into 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Let me just convert it into integers so that it is easier to deal with them. So this is our input, right? If you observe that we have a starting point here, let us denote this as a starting point, and this is the ending point, right? So this is the starting point, this is the ending point. These starting and ending points are always fixed in our question. So if you observe the cost, for example, if I have to go to this middle point, so the cost, the first observation is the cost of going from S to C is equal to the cost of going from S to mid plus the cost of going from mid to C, right? So our final observation is in every case we have to reach from the first index to the last index. This is fixed, right? So in between I can jump on any number of indexes in a way such that my distance from E is always decreasing, right? I can go from S to the right always. I cannot make a left move because it will increase my cost. As long as I am making right moves, it doesn't matter how many moves I make, the cost will always remain the same, right? I just have to keep moving right. Similarly, if the value of starting point was greater and the value of ending point was less, like if E was present here, then I just have to keep moving it to the left, right? No matter how many moves I take, the cost will always be the same until and unless I don't make a right move, right? So I always have to make left moves. So this is my important observation, and this is the only observation needed to solve this question. So first I will have to identify that whether this number is the starting index is greater than the last index or smaller than the last index. If it is smaller than the last index, then I'll just sort all of these values in a manner like I will sort all of these values and I can visit all of them such that these two are within this particular range. So for example, if there was some ith index at this position, right? So I don't have to visit I cannot visit I. And while visiting these points, for example, these are the points between S and E. While visiting these points, I have to visit them in order. I cannot visit this point first and then go to the left. I cannot do this. So I have to visit them in order. So I have to sort all the values between S and E, the starting point and the ending point. I have to sort all these values and just print them. So the implementation is a bit tricky. Let me just show you directly. So initially what I have done is I have taken a string S as input and a vector V. So I can rewrite it as vector of integers, right? Now what I do is I just traverse through the string S and I push back in the vector V the corresponding value to the ith character, right? Or the character I in the string S. Now I calculate the maximum and minimum out of these, the element present at V of 0 and the last element, the first element and the last element. Now I initialize a pair of vectors result, and I know that I have to maintain the first element as well as the last element in the final vector. So I push both of them in the result vector, right? What I'm doing is I am pushing the element as well as its index. I'll tell you why its index is important to store later. So what I do is starting from the first index till the second last index, if the value at the ith index is present between this range, that is it is small less than equal to the maximum value and greater than equal to the minimum value, then I'll also push it into the result vector in a pair storing v of I and its index. So I'm storing I plus 1 for one based indexing, right? So now if v of 0 is the maximum element among those, then I sort the result vector in decreasing order. Otherwise, I'll sort it in increasing order. So you might wonder what is this comp? So comp is just a custom comparator that I have used. So if the value of a dot first is equal to the value of a b dot first, this means that the first element of a and b are equal. I'll sort them on the basis of the second element such that the first element that has the smaller value of index should be placed first, right? So if they are not equal, then what I'll do is that the element with a higher value of the first of the v of I, that is the first element stored at the first pair, right, should be greater. So that is why I'm sorting it. So this way it will be sorted in reverse order or decreasing order. So why I have stored it in decreasing order? The reason is, for example, if this is our array and this is it is 4 2 3 1. If I have to go from 4 to 1, so this is the example of this particular type when the start is placed after the end, right? So I have to go in the decreasing order or I have to keep decreasing the value. That is why I sort it in the reverse order or decreasing order. So once I have sorted the result array, now what I do is I initialize the cost with 0 and I create a new vector called print. So print will store all the values that I have to print in the answer, right? So initially I just stored the index of result of 0, where which will result of 0 dot second, which will obviously be the first element. So it can be the first index. Now I start my loop from 1 to less than result dot size. The cost would be result of I dot first minus result of I minus 1 dot first. So the two adjacent elements are being compared and the difference in their values is being stored in the result. So I have to take the absolute value of both of them. The next what I do is I add this to the print vector. So this should be like this, right? So I just push this particular value, which is the index. So this is where the index was very important to use because I needed to print it in the final answer. That is why I'm storing the index as well. So here I'm pushing back the index of the ith element in the print vector. So print will have my final answer. At the end, what I do is I just print the cost, I just print the size of the print vector, and I print all the elements of the print vector which had my final result. So this would be the code for the third question. Now moving on to the last question for today's video. So this is question number D. So this particular question says that we have been given a group of n friends. So we have information about n friends and each of the friend plans to order meals for xi burals. So burals is the currency, and for example, the ith friend wants to order meals for xi amount and he has a total of yi burals. Means he wants to spend xi money and he only has yi money, right? Now we can group the friends, we can form some groups in at least of two. So there should be at least two friends forming a group and they go to the restaurant, right? And each friend should be only present in one particular group. So these cannot intersect. These groups must satisfy one particular condition, that is the total amount of money that they have should not be less than the total amount of money they want to spend, right? So we have to find the maximum number of days friends can visit the restaurant, right? So each group will visit one day. So basically this question wants us to form the maximum groups possible, right? So the first observation, without thinking about anything, the first observation that we have is to maximize the number of groups, we need to make sure that all the groups are of size 2. So because it will not be viable to make groups of size greater than 2 because the minimum size is 2 and we want to maximize the number of groups, right? So the second observation I'll tell you is before that, for each person, what we can do is, let me just capture it. So if we consider this particular test case, this is the test case given in the question. So this is first we were given the order meals. So this is what the person wants and this is what the person has, right? Want and have. So he wants 8 and he has 5. So this person is in a deficit of 3. And here the deficit is 0. Here the deficit is 8. So this would be minus 8. So this would be a excess of 2. This would be an excess of 1. This would be an excess of 5. So these are the values that we have formed. that this particular person has a deficit of 3, right? He has 3 bureaus less than he wants to spend. This person has 0 balance. This person has a deficit of 8 because he wants to spend 9, but he only has 1. This person has an excess of 2. So, and this person has an excess of 1. This person has an excess of 5. So, if we sort them in order, we will have an array like this. We are sorting them in decreasing order. So, it will be 5, 2, 1, 0, minus 3, minus 8. Right. So one important observation is that we want, so first observation was we want to form groups of 2 people, right? If we take any two non-zero numbers, or if we take any two non-negative numbers, the answer would be always greater than or equal to 0, right? So one thing is for sure, we can take any amount of non-negative numbers, right, in groups of 2. This is what first case. The second important thing to observe is we cannot take these negative values independently. There must be some positive integer countering this particular value so that the total sum is greater than or equal to 0. So what we have observed is that values that are non-negative can survive on their own. They can be on their own, right? Values that are negative values need support from some positive values. So a better idea would be to pair these negative values with some positive values such that they can form a pair. And again, one more thing, it is optimal to choose only 2 people in a group. So if any negative values cannot be satisfied with one positive value, we will leave it alone, right? So we will check with at max one positive value. So for example, minus 8 is here, minus 5 is here. So it will not form a sum greater than or equal to 0. Let us kick minus 8 out of the picture, right? So minus 5 can form a sum greater than or equal to 0 with minus 3. So I pair these two, right? So this is 0. So I don't, as soon as I run out of negative values, I can stop this particular loop from the back, and then I can start forming pairs from the front, because there are no negative values here. Now all of them can form these positive pairs such that the sum would be greater than or equal to 0. So I can form the pairs from here, or I can form the pairs from here. It's the choice is yours. You can form pairs from either side, but the answer would be the same. So our goal is that we have to take the first positive value and try to pair it with the maximum negative value, or the minimum negative value, we would say, right? We would try to pair it with a minimum negative value. As soon as we run out of negative values, what we can do is we can just start forming pairs of 2 linearly from any side. I can form it from this side, or I can form it from this side, right? So this is exactly what I have done in the code. What we do is we take 2 pairs or 2 vectors of x named x and y of size n. We take input in both of the vectors. I create a third vector which will store the difference of both of the vectors. So v of I is equals to y of I minus x of I, right? Now I sort the vector v, and I have taken this custom function called ref sort. So what this ref sort does is it returns a is greater than b. It's a Boolean function, so it will be sorted in reverse order. Now I initialize my count as 0, low as 0, and high as n minus 1. So low would be pointing at the first element in 0 based indexing, and high will be pointing at, or h will be pointing at the last index in 0 based indexing. So while L is less than h and V of h is less than 0. So as soon as I am finding negative values at the high index, I'll check if if the sum of both of them is less than 0, then I'll just move h to the left. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll increment L, because I've used that positive value with this, but with the value at h to make the sum non-negative, and decrement h, and then finally add 1 to count. So after doing this loop, I can after all the negative values have been treated, what I can do is I can start forming pairs of non-negative values. So I can start it from L plus 1. I go till less than H plus 1 or less than equal to H. So L is the first value that is not used and H is the last value that is not used. So I'm going till less than H plus 1. Now at each step I increment I by 2. So if V of I is greater than equal to V of I minus 1. So I believe this will always be greater than equal to 0 because we have removed all the non-negative values. But even if you include this, there would be no harm in there will be no change in the answer, right? So if this is true, I increment count, otherwise I break out of the loop and at the end I print count. So this was the solution for the fourth question of today's contest. I hope you guys were able to understand the solutions. So till the next video drops, keep coding, stay safe, bye bye.